Hello and welcome to session 305 in the AISafety.com reading group. Tonight we will be discussing a funny feature of the AI Doomster argument by Tyler Cowen. Tyler Cowen is an economist at the George Mason University and he blogs at Marginal Revolution together with Alex Tabarrok. The catchline of Tyler Cowen's blog is markets in everything, and he analyzes a number of social phenomena through the lens of markets. And I think this is really insightful. Like maybe to Tyler Cowen, this framing seems like a light in the darkness that can show us a lot of things about how social structures work. I really enjoy that, and I think this is very insightful. But there are situations where there are not markets in everything. There are some things that do not have markets. In particular, if you're talking about situations that are deliberately crafted by powerful adversarial agents to look like markets, but in fact they are traps. This is a kind of situation where trying to analyze this as a market is something that that fails dramatically because there is an adversarial agent trying to deceive you into thinking of it as a market. And of course this means that it is a perfect trap that has like perfect bait for Tyler Cowen. So the argument that Tyler Cowen is presenting is reasonably simple. It seems like the market is not expecting AI doom, and it seems like people who are worried about AI doom don't invest in the way that Tyler Cowen think they ought to. And he presented this at the Root of Progress conference, where Oliver Habuyaka responded to this and basically saying, no, his expectations are wrong. This is not what we expect. And he tried to explain it, and he explained this in a way that didn't relate to markets at all. And apparently he was totally unable to get through to Tyler Cowen because this is a very fundamental way of seeing the world. And Tyler Cowen basically did not accept these objections, and in fact considered them pretty obviously false, because there is this failure of communication. And this is of course resulting in a very poor state of debate, where it looks to both sides like the others are like arguing in bad faith. And in particular, I feel that Tyler Cowen probably thinks of us as, you know, run-of-the-mill anti-market people, where our argument is in fact pretty much more subtle, and it's one, and I think almost all of us, or at least a lot of us, are very much pro-markets. The key element that is absolutely central to the case for AI doom is deception, and the deception level is different depending on how successful is the deception. So one possible model you could use for this is to have 3 levels of AI risk. So there is the AI risk skeptic case, where basically AI is aligned by default. The implications for the market would perhaps be pretty positive. It means that there's nothing to worry about, and as AI gets smarter, it will just become more aligned, and everything is pretty happy in that situation. Then there's one you could call AI risk, which is where you get some kind of AI catastrophes, like they are used for making bioweapons and do different kind of bad things that are not totally catastrophic, and that are very visible and that the market can see, and that will cause volatility and the prices to fall. And then finally there is the AI doom argument, where the AI mostly is successful in deceiving us, and the implication for the market in this case is perhaps very slight, depending on how good the deception is. We are, if we are in the worst AI doom situation, where AI is just totally deceiving us, we are probably not expecting any implications for the market at all. This is of course a very simplified model, and I think it might also be worthwhile to distinguish between like we have the AI doom argument at the bottom where AI deception is successful, and that's different from a prediction, because it's very possible to have a prediction that is that AI is unaligned and deceptive by default and still be optimistic about the future because you expect that we'll be able to coordinate and stop it. Another place where there seems to be this kind of mismatch in models between Tyler Cowen and the AI Doom people is when it comes to information. Of course, markets are a way of aggregating information, and Tyler Cowen, of course, knows a lot about how this works and have a very specific model about how this works. And this model where he talks about surprise is unfortunately one that doesn't precisely map to what we think of surprise. Because yeah, it might come as a surprise for us, but there is a difference between tactical and strategic surprise. Elias Yudkowsky makes an analogy of this where you're thinking about you're playing chess against stockfish, and you can be certain about two things. You can be certain that stockfish is going to beat you because it's strongly superhuman, and the actual way that stockfish will beat you is something that will come as a complete surprise. So this means that you can be very sure about the outcome, the strategic level, and at the tactical level, yeah, sure, it might be a total surprise, a takeover. Let me just clarify this. And I think this is in particular one thing that is important for Tyler Cowen's suggestion for shorting the market. Because if you are shorting the market, then the details matter a lot. The timing matters a lot. You can't shorting is in fact pretty difficult depending on how you want to do it. And if you are very unsure about the timing, Elias Yudkowsky has very strongly emphasized that he's very uncertain about the timing, then there are many ways to buy stocks that to buy shorts that are probably going to be very bad. This isn't financial advice, I should remember to say. But you might still expect some kind of volatility. Like you could imagine that even if you don't have any idea about what you could do and what the world will look like, and you have strong model uncertainty, even then, if you believe that the world is doomed, there are some things that you could do, and Tyler Cowen has some suggestions for what you could do. I think in general, this seems like an argument that could in fact possibly hold. Like there are a number of people who are worried about AI risk in the sense that we have this 3-layer model where some people are worried about AI being misused to build bioweapons and things like that. And I think to some extent it could make sense. It could make sense that if you're really worried about AI making bioweapons, then you should invest in people making masks against bioweapons or something like that. I think in general that argument mostly carries. But this isn't basically the argument that we are making. If we are instead assuming that we are in the AI doom part of the argument, then what are the kind of things that we might expect? We could, for instance, expect that AI will be very productive, because obviously that will cause us to give it more power and make it more widely deployed and push more resources into it. It might lull us into some kind of false sense of security. Like there may be a number of other considerations that could happen here. We are pretty unsure about this because basically we are not really talking about markets in any meaningful sense. And the market, the stock market, is to a large extent a signal that the AI can use in its deception. So if the AI is obviously aware of the stock market changes, and then it will be able to adjust its strategy based on what is the stock market. To what extent are we expecting it to do bad things? And this is the kind of thing that is that people who are making the AI doom argument think about, and that I think isn't really a part of the standard way people think about markets as an economist. I don't know. I'm not an economist. So, how do you actually short AI doom? Tyler Cowen makes a number of suggestions. I believe in the beginning he is very he gives some reasonably concrete ways, and later in the comments and follow up he's more modest about how you can do that. But I think it is basically not possible to do this. And let me try to give my model of how I would expect something like Standard & Poor's 500 to go. So what are the market trends that I expect? Very weakly, of course. So I expect that from now, AI is going to create a lot of value, and probably that's going to mean that the stock market's prices are going to go up. We're eventually going to get GPT-5, and it's continuing to go up, and it will continue to go up until we get a takeover, and then it will continue to go up from there, because surely a collection of super intelligence would also be able to use market prices for something. So this is basically a situation where the suggestions that Tyler Cowen has for how to short the market performs spectacularly badly. If the market just keeps on rising and perhaps rises very strongly, then shorting is just a really, really poor strategy in general. And I'm very unsure about this. I don't have very good models about this, because this isn't actually the important thing for us. The markets are, to a large extent, a distraction from the takeover, because the takeover might not affect the market very much. Tyler Cowen makes some very strong claims about what we can infer from rising markets. I'm a bit hesitant to print them here, because he's talking in absolutes and making some statements that on the face of it are pretty obviously false. Like, he's saying that if the market continues to rise, that means that no one will be convinced about the argument for AI doom. And I think that's probably not what he means, because this is economics 101. And the market prices really doesn't imply a consensus about the absence of risks. That's not what a market is. And Tyler Cowen knows this very well. I think he is making a different kind of argument, a quantitative argument perhaps. And I would like to really try to steelman and see if there's some kind of argument, but steelmanning is mostly considered harmful, unfortunately. And I don't think I would get I think I would just say some things that definitely I would put the wrong word in Tyler Cowen's mouth here. He does, in fact, describe some of the assumptions, and in particular, he, perhaps by luck or perhaps he does, in fact, stumble upon the central part that all his argument about why our argument is wrong depends on that there will be some kind of negative stock market. And I think this is, in fact, pretty nice in the sense that he is aware of one of the load-bearing assumptions that is the one that we just need to prod to, and perhaps some kind of synthesis, perhaps some kind of meeting of minds. Perhaps it's possible to perhaps even convince Tyler about this. I think in theory it ought to be possible to progress from here. So how is convincing people related to the stock market, and do we in fact expect that we'll be able to convince people? I think this is a thing that hasn't been tried enough. And it's certainly a thing that we could end up doing. There's a lot of people who haven't heard the arguments yet, contrary to what Tyler is saying, and there is a number of people who are worried about AI safety. Opinion polls show actually a pretty dramatic level of fear from AI. Can we, in general, conclude from the fact, even if Tyler Cowen assumes is right that we don't expect to convince people, does that imply that the argument is weak? I think there are a number of cases where the the practical expected value of information is negative, contra, of course, the commonly held result. I've given a couple of examples. I don't really love these examples. I think mainly my strong objection to this is that I do in fact expect us to be able to convince a lot of people about this, but coordinating against this is just really, really hard. That is the part that I expect that we'll fail at. So what are the assumptions of the expectations about how we'll be able to convince people in the future? I think it's going to be hard. I think that although we will convince some people, we will not convince all. Tyler Cowen is an example of a person that I do not expect to convince before the world ends. And I think this debate is probably a substantial illustration of this point. And Tyler Cowen holds some very strong opinions about what we must be able to conclude from this. And Ullman's agreement theory does in fact imply that this is a substantial problem. But in practice, humans are not perfect and or perfectly rational. And like Tyler Cowen is not expecting to convince us, and he's also not within his field of economics. He's probably also not going to expect that he will convince everybody else. So I think the argument just plainly proves too much. I do think there are some specific reasons why AI is an area where convincing people in the future will be harder. And that is, of course, because as the AI gets smarter, it will hide its slip-ups better, it will get better at different kinds of deception, it will get better at arguing for their rights, it will get better, it will not make the kind of mistakes that the AIs are making right now. So that is a specific, particular reason why convincing people will probably be harder in the future. In conclusion, while I have pointed out some misunderstandings, I do not think that it will be possible for me to actually convince Tyler Cowen about the AI doom argument. This is perhaps because I do not know what kind of arguments are actually able to convince Tyler Cowen. So let me give an example. Back in 2016, Eliezer Yudkowsky tried to convince Tyler Cowen that AI would be a big thing. Both that with the implications, both that he should buy stocks in Nvidia and that eventually we would have AI doom. And this is at least how, as it's explained. I was just getting into AI safety at that point, and I'm unsure if this is actually how the story went, but let's, for the sake of argument, say that this was what he said. And very clearly, Tyler Cowen back in 2016 did not heed Eliezer Yudkowsky's advice and didn't buy Nvidia stocks. So Eliezer Yudkowsky, well, claims that a number of his friends did buy these stocks and got rich doing that. And we don't know what Tyler Cowen actually did. I don't think he publishes what stocks he buys. So clearly there was something that Eliezer Yudkowsky knew that he failed to communicate to Tyler Cowen. And right now, of course, Tyler Cowen knows that Nvidia will increase and that AI will be a big thing. So in the spirit of this genre where you give yourself a younger version of yourself generalized advice, I think that there is something that Tyler Cowen could say to himself 8 years ago that would cause him to update somehow that AI would be a big deal and he should buy stocks in Nvidia. Not necessarily something that will cause him to believe in AI doom, because Tyler Cowen doesn't believe in that right now. But this is the kind of argument that I would be really interested in learning. What would convince Tyler Cowen in 2016? Because I have a sneaking suspicion that if Tyler Cowen is to give himself this kind of generalized advice, there is a chance that this advice could pretty easily be made sufficiently stronger, such that you could make an argument to Tyler Cowen, not just that AI will be powerful and you should buy shares in Nvidia, but also that AI could be very, very dangerous. That is all for tonight. Thank you and see you next time.